When my wife died, my son remarked, "Mom's gone, and Megan only has one birthday each year." His words hit hard. The next morning, he came to me with an urgent request, acting like nothing had happened. It was a chance for me to fix things between us, and I grabbed it. I nervously dialed Kyle's number at 8:30 a.m., fidgeting with my black tie. On the kitchen counter sat Margaret's lipstick-stained coffee cup. Without her morning tunes, the place felt eerily quiet. After 4 rings, Kyle answered with a groggy voice. "Hey son, it's your dad." I straightened up. "The funeral is at 11:30. Through the phone came the sound of blaring music and laughter, Megan chatting about decorations. Kyle cleared his throat. "Dad, as I mentioned yesterday, Megan's party is tonight. We've been planning for months." His words felt like a cold shower. I gripped the phone tighter. "Today is your mom's funeral, Kyle. It's a one-time event. Look, Mom's not coming back, but Megan's birthdays happen every year. We have caterers booked. The band is setting up. Your mom gave you 35 years, but I can't let Megan down on her day. You understand, right?" Then the dial tone filled my ear. I stayed still for exactly 3 minutes, staring at Margaret's glasses by the phone. The clock said 8:47 a.m., and the morning sun gleamed off my wedding ring. I found the funeral program on the counter, with Kyle noted as a pallbearer. I crossed his name out with determination. At the cemetery, people looked around, expecting him to show up. "Where's Kyle?" Patricia, Margaret's sister, kept asking. I had a ready answer. "He's got other commitments," I said, but the words left a bitter taste. 23 people came to honor my wife of 40 years, but not her son. Standing alone by her casket, surrounded by Margaret's garden club friends and former neighbors, the space Kyle should have filled seemed enormous. "She adored that boy," Mrs. Henderson murmured, always praising his achievements. I nodded, my throat tight. Even in her final days, Margaret defended Kyle. When he missed her chemotherapy sessions, she'd say, "He's just busy with his new life," and remind me that young couples need space. The pastor spoke of family and eternal love. Each shovelful of dirt on her polished coffin didn't just bury Margaret, but my hopes for Kyle, too. Driving home, I clutched the wheel until my knuckles were white. The seat beside me, where Margaret used to sit, was empty. She always preferred her little Honda, calling it eco-friendly. Her favorite song played on the radio, so I switched it off. Our neighborhood still looked the same, with its tidy lawns and painted mailboxes, part of the world we had created together. I parked and paused for a moment, bracing myself for the loneliness inside. The front door key turned with its familiar click. I hung my keys where Margaret always did, a small gesture that felt immense in the silence. No gentle singing, no hum of the TV, just a home filled with 40 years of memories. I loosened my tie and sank into my armchair. The brown leather one Margaret had said clashed with her floral curtains. She'd wanted to redecorate forever, but I was always too wrapped up in business. Now they'd remain unchanged. Our wedding photo smiled down from the mantel. Margaret at 23, radiant in her grandma's dress. We got married right here in Davenport, promising each other the world. I delivered on that promise, maybe too much so. Uninvited memories flooded back. Kyle's first steps were taken right here, his tiny hands reaching out to Margaret, birthday parties with homemade decorations because we couldn't afford store-bought ones. Margaret working extra shifts at the diner while I got my construction company up and running. She never complained, not even during 16-hour days or a month of macaroni and cheese dinners. "We're building Kyle's future," she'd whisper after he fell asleep between us, too young for his room. I came across her Bible by the nightstand, bookmarks still nestled among the Psalms. A handwritten note slipped out. "My dearest Alan, please make sure Kyle remembers us. We gave him everything we could. I hope it was enough. All my love, M." Her careful script made my hands shake. In the closet, I discovered the special box she had tucked away. It held all of Kyle's report cards from kindergarten through college, every A+ celebrated, every achievement treasured. She'd written little notes on each one. So proud, our brilliant boy. The graduation pictures stung the worst, Kyle beaming in his cap and gown. We spent $200,000 on his degree, funded by Margaret's extra hours and my weekend gigs. His smile never seemed to acknowledge the sacrifices driving his success. Grabbing my calculator, I began crunching the numbers. I handed him $350,000 for the house down payment. His wedding to Megan, $75,000. Got him his first car for $35,000. Graduate school he wanted, $48,000, which he never utilized. Emergency loans, vacations, Megan's shopping sprees, and failed business efforts added up quick. Margaret's coffee mug still sat in the dishwasher. Her romance novel lay open on the nightstand, with a bookmark awaiting eyes that would never read again. The kitchen counter was loaded with friends' get-well cards, showing more concern during her final months than Kyle ever did. The numbers kept escalating. Kyle's total haul over 15 years reached $847,000, almost $1 million spent with love and hope. I thought of my own dad, a no-nonsense man who expected me to pave my own path. Build your own character, he'd say. Maybe he was right. The night grew darker, but I didn't bother flicking on the lights. A car pulled into the driveway, idling. I stayed seated. If Kyle wanted to chat, he knew where I was. The vehicle eventually revved up and drove off. At the crack of dawn, I sat at my mahogany desk, neatly arranged with file folders. Kyle's education, Kyle's house, Kyle's wedding. My coffee turned cold as I opened the calculator app, beginning the accounting Margaret had been too kind to initiate. With my reading glasses reflecting the computer screen, I pulled up our financial records. 15 years' worth of transactions, each methodically logged as a transfer to Kyle or a loan for one of his emergencies. Paper rustled gently in the home's silence, the sound of my new reality. First on the list was college tuition, 4 years at $52,000 each. I remembered signing those checks. Margaret worked extra shifts to pay our bills while our son partied it up at Iowa State. Then came graduate school. Another $48,000 for an MBA abandoned to find himself in Europe. That exploration cost $35,000. Just temporary, Dad, until I get established. The home purchase nearly crippled us. At 25, Kyle stood in our living room beside Megan, flaunting her engagement ring. We found a perfect place, but we're a bit short on the down payment. $350,000. I co-signed the mortgage and covered the entire down payment. Family helps family, Kyle had said, hugging me tightly. I'll pay you back when the business takes off. Which business? He worked for me post-graduation, earning unmerited pay while I tried to impart skills I thought he'd come to value. Margaret's private notebook tumbled from the files. Her handwriting noted each sacrifice. Canceled anniversary dinner. Needed $5,000 for Kyle's car repairs. Skipped my doctor's visit. Wedding expenses overran expectations. Bought generic groceries this month. Sent Kyle money for Megan's birthday. Her last note hit the hardest. We gave Kyle everything. I hope he remembers us kindly. The calculator's digits climbed, $847,000, nearly $1 million. My dad gave me $20 with a parting handshake. I built everything from nothing, while Kyle treated it like his inheritance to squander. I remembered him calling my company a family business last Christmas, as if he'd been a builder with me instead of slotting into a pre-made position. Megan nodded approvingly, already eyeing how to burn through the profits I'd earned over 4 decades. My business acumen kicked in. This wasn't just about mourning, it was about solving a pressing issue. I've been too emotional, justifying behavior Margaret often worried about. Maybe we're doing too much for him, she whispered after Kyle's last crisis. Her photo gazed at me from the desk corner as I closed the files and stood. With newfound resolve, feeling something weightier than grief settle in my heart. I turned to her picture and said aloud, "You were right to worry." Just then, the phone rang, displaying Kyle's name. I let it ring 4 times before answering with a calm voice. "Hey, Dad, handling things okay after yesterday?" Kyle's voice was its usual upbeat self, like it always was when he wanted something. He skipped over the funeral and didn't bother asking how I was dealing with Margaret's passing. "I'm getting by," I said, trying to keep my voice steady while looking at the mess of financial documents all over my desk. "That's good. Good to hear. Anyway, I'm calling because we kind of went overboard on spending. Megan's party was a blast, but yeah, you hit 32 only once, right?" I heard Megan chip in from the background. "Make sure to mention the band." Kyle went on, "Yeah, we hired this awesome live band, took everyone to eat at that new steakhouse, and I bought Megan a gorgeous diamond bracelet. She deserves only the best, you know? But now we're sitting on $15,000 worth of bills to pay right away." $15,000? I did a quick mental calculation. Loan number 47 over 15 years. I had just buried my wife yesterday. Now my son was asking for money for a party. "Think you can transfer that to my account today?" Megan's really freaked out about the bills, and you know how she gets when she's worried. A long silence stretched out. I glanced at Margaret's photo, then at the stack of expenses Kyle had accumulated over the years. "No." Silence. "What do you mean, no? Is there an issue with the bank?" I clarified, "No, Kyle. I'm not giving you more money." The fake cheerfulness in his voice vanished. "You're seriously saying no after everything that happened this week?" He talked like he'd endured the funeral instead of partying. "You're 35, Kyle. So what? What's that got to do with helping me out when I'm struggling? You've got the money." From the background, Megan's voice got louder. "Tell him we need it. We've already spent the money." I told you no. It felt strange to say it, since it was the first time I'd ever refused him. This is unbelievable. Just after Mom passed away, you're being stingy about money. She'd want you to help us. His smooth manipulation was back in action, just like always. How often had he played this card? How many times had Margaret and I caved in for family's sake? "Your mom wanted you at her funeral." Kyle's breathing turned heavy. "Fine. We'll figure it out, max out credit cards, or borrow from Megan's parents. But don't count on us visiting if you go on like this." For 35 years, this tactic worked like a charm. Kyle came around when I supported him financially, and his absence was how he punished my refusals. "I get it," I responded calmly. "You what?" "I understand. Take care, Kyle." I hung up before he could say more. For the first time in years, I ended a call with my son in a way that felt right to me. I opened my laptop and went through Kyle's employee file, planning a different kind of conversation for tomorrow at the office where I'd be the boss, not the dad confused about the roles. By 7:30 in the morning, I walked into Foster Constructions, 2 hours before Kyle usually showed up. His picture was up on the management wall, wearing the suit I'd gifted him. Now, instead of seeing potential, all I saw was entitlement. In my office, his work records were laid out like evidence ready for court. 8 years' worth of job records showed it all. Missed deadlines, complaints from contractors, exaggerated expense claims, delays on projects because Kyle couldn't put supervision ahead of extended lunches, and strained client relationships due to his laid-back attitude. I'd cleaned up all his messes, Margaret always gently saying he was learning, but these files revealed a consistent pattern of negligence that would have gotten anyone else fired long ago. At 8:45, I called Sarah Mitchell into my office. As the HR director, she was in charge of handling all the paperwork perfectly. Her face didn't change a bit when I told her my decision. She'd been keeping tabs on Kyle's slip-ups for quite a while, just waiting for me to take action. "I'll prepare the termination documents immediately," she said softly. "We'd need a security escort, as per the usual protocol for management dismissals." I rehearsed my speech in front of the office mirror. watching my reflection deliver the lines with cool professionalism. No emotion, just what the law required. Kyle would come into this room as my son's employee and leave without a job. At 9:30, Kyle showed up 15 minutes late, joking with the receptionist about recovering from Megan's party. His laughter echoed around the lobby, while his colleagues nervously eyed my closed office door. He stopped by the coffee machine, completely unaware of what was coming. "Kyle, please come to my office immediately," I announced over the intercom, my voice suddenly more authoritative. Kyle's casual reply drifted down the hall. "Okay, Dad. Just let me grab my coffee." "Now, Kyle," I insisted, and the silence that followed clearly marked the change. His steps were slower, heavier as he approached. When he opened the door and saw Sarah with the paperwork, his grin faded. "Why all the formal stuff?" He attempted to act cool, but a hint of doubt crept in. I stayed in my seat, hands folded on the desk. "Kyle, your job with Foster Construction is done," I stated firmly. He forced a laugh. "Very funny, Dad. What's really going on?" I slid the termination papers across the desk. "Go through these and sign where necessary," I directed. As he picked them up, it was like they burned his fingers. Reading the legal terms, his face went pale. "You can't be serious. This is the family business," he said, his voice rising. "This decision is about your work and behavior." I kept my businesslike tone. "Your role is gone due to restructuring." "Is this because of yesterday's call?" His voice wavered. "I'm sorry about the money issue. We can sort it out." "Security will assist you in packing your things," I replied. Kyle's expression shifted from disbelief to desperation. "Mom wouldn't stand for this. You know she wouldn't." He leaned forward, trying to guilt-trip me as he'd done before. I called for security. "This is business, not personal," I asserted. Mike Thompson stood in the doorway, professional but with sympathy in his eyes. Kyle's face flushed, realizing the embarrassment was real. Co-workers gathered in the hallway, watching the boss's son being escorted out like he was a common thief. "Dad, please," Kyle pleaded one more time, grabbing his coffee mug and a desk photo of Megan. "Think about what you're doing." I met his eyes for the first time during this entire exchange. "I have," I said. From my office window, I watched him load his things into his car, his shoulders shaking with either anger or sadness. I wasn't sure which. He glanced back at the building once more, and I looked away. Sarah returned with the signed documents. "All access codes are reset. His computer access is revoked," she reported. I took Kyle's picture off the management wall and placed it face down in a drawer. Oddly, the empty spot looked neater. My secretary gave a light knock. "Mr. Foster, someone's here without an appointment." Designer heels clicked on the marble floor as Megan Foster stormed past reception, not waiting to be invited in, her perfectly styled hair tousled by the wind. Kyle, embarrassed and defeated, followed behind, a shadow of the confident man who'd entered the building just an hour earlier. "How could you humiliate Kyle like this?" Megan's voice boomed as she pointed accusingly at me. I stayed seated, unfazed by her dramatic entrance. Kyle tried to intervene, standing between Megan and my desk, clearly uncomfortable. "Megan, please let me deal with this," he begged, but she wasn't having it. "We have bills, Alan. We have a lifestyle to maintain. This business is part of Kyle's life too," she argued. "This is a private space. You should leave," I answered, undisturbed. Her face flushed a deeper red. "We deserve at least 6 months of severance. Kyle's been here 8 years. You owe us." Kyle tried to calm the situation, but no one was listening. "Dad, can't we discuss this in private?" he asked. "No," Megan jumped in, determined. "He needs to know. I'm well versed in wrongful termination laws." Calmly, I responded, "Kyle worked at will. By law or contract, severance isn't required." Megan grew even harsher. Margaret would be ashamed of how you're treating her son. You're clearly losing it, just a bitter old man taking your grief out on us." Kyle turned pale. "Megan, stop," he pleaded. Though I held my cool, her reaction was just what I expected. Her self-righteous fury was simply a smokescreen for her manipulation. Kyle attempted to restore some order. "Dad, I realize I messed up with the funeral, and I'm sorry, but ruining my job won't bring Mom back. Think about what this does to our family, to your possible future grandkids." His words lingered in the air, heavy like smoke from a dying fire. I stared at the man who shared my blood but not my values, thinking, what family? Megan's threats about money ramped up. "We'll go to court for our share of Margaret's estate. Kyle deserves half. We know about the insurance." "Margaret left everything to me," I stated, and the truth momentarily dulled her argument. "Impossible. We're getting a lawyer." I hit the security button as Megan's tone grew dangerously loud. Mike Thompson returned with backup, their presence filling the doorway. Employees were gathering in the hallway, drawn by the commotion. "I'm not leaving," Megan shouted as security moved in. "This is theft. This is abusive." Her protests were loud but futile. The entire office heard her cries as security led her through the lobby. Kyle stood there, face flushed with shame, as his wife was escorted out of the building where he once worked. After the dust settled, Kyle stayed with me, trying one last time to win me over with a whispered, "I'm all the family you have left." Those words were designed to crush me, but instead, they brought me clarity. I faced this stranger, who looked like my son, and told him what he needed to hear. "No, you're someone who used to be my son." Kyle's demeanor shattered. For a fleeting moment, I glimpsed the child who used to rush into my arms after school. Then, that memory vanished, leaving behind the entitled stranger he'd become. Without another word, he left. I addressed my concerned staff with calm professionalism, ensuring them this was personal and wouldn't affect business. They nodded, understanding, having seen Kyle's failings over the years. "Please ensure Mrs. Foster isn't allowed back in," I instructed security. Alone, I noticed my hands trembling slightly. The hardest part was over. I glanced at Margaret's photo on my desk and silently hoped she understood. Turning to my computer, I started searching for estate planning attorneys. It was time to push things forward. I scheduled an appointment with Robert Chen for that afternoon and saw Kyle's birthday marked for next month. I deleted it for good. Chen and Associates were located on Davenport's tallest building's top floor. At 2:30 p.m., I walked into the reception area with my leather briefcase containing Margaret's will, insurance papers, and the financial documents that would shape our family's future. The receptionist immediately recognized me and led me to Robert Chen's corner office. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the large windows overlooking downtown, casting light on the walls lined with law books, lending an air of gravity to the room. Robert rose from his mahogany desk, eyes filled with concern. We'd been friends for 20 years, and he'd handled Margaret's will, my business matters, and other legal issues needing discretion. "How are you holding up, Alan?" he asked earnestly. Declining his offer of coffee, I sat down in the leather chair across from his desk. "I need to make some changes to my estate planning," I said directly. Robert switched to a professional demeanor. "Adjusting the beneficiaries after Margaret's death is routine." "Not this time," I said, taking out the paperwork from my briefcase. "I'm cutting Kyle off completely." Robert was caught off guard, losing his cool composure as the weight of the situation sank in. "Alan, you need to tell me why you're doing this," he insisted. I calmly detailed why Kyle had skipped the funeral, citing his flimsy excuse about Megan's birthday party. With every word, Robert's face turned grimmer. As both a friend to Margaret and our family attorney, he understood the depth of Kyle's letdown. "I want to draft a brand new will," I announced, with the Margaret Foster Memorial Foundation as the main recipient. Robert leaned over, focusing on the legal angles involved. "Alan, I have to make sure you fully comprehend the impact of this decision," he advised. "I've never been more confident," I returned, unfolding my vision. Scholarships for underprivileged kids and cancer research funding, causes dear to Margaret's heart. Kyle, along with his future lineage, would be cut out of the picture. As I laid out the logistics of the foundation, Robert's respect for my resolve increased. By moving company assets into an irrevocable trust, everything was insulated against legal claims. I'd stay in control until my death, then the foundation would take over. "We'll need to update all insurance beneficiaries," Robert reminded me, scribbling notes. "This is serious planning." I decided to sell our family house, directing the profits to the foundation, while Margaret's jewelry would be auctioned for charity. Her wedding ring, however, would be buried with me. "And Kyle's childhood possessions?" Robert inquired softly. "Donated. I'm methodically removing Kyle from my world." Fulfilling his lawyerly obligations, Robert questioned my mental capacity and motivations. My clear-headed responses and detailed strategy reassured him. Gradually, he shifted from a worried friend to a respectful legal advisor. The formal signing took place with 2 legal witnesses from Robert's office. I signed each paper with steady hands, feeling the weight of every choice. Robert explained that these documents were now legally binding. Kyle was officially disinherited. "I want Kyle to receive formal notice of this change," I directed. Additional legal safeguards soon followed, revoking his power of attorney, excluding him from medical decisions, and laying out my medical care preferences in a living will. Robert documented my competence thoroughly. Tomorrow, I would visit the banks, erasing Kyle as a beneficiary from my retirement and investment accounts. Robert offered his help with reaching out to financial institutions. Establishing the foundation brought a calming peace. I appointed Robert as a trustee, discussed the board's makeup, and outlined our first scholarship recipients in Margaret's name. "Margaret would be so proud of this foundation," Robert remarked as we wrapped up. "She always valued education and helping others." For the first time in days, I felt a sense of contentment rather than just resolve. Robert understood this wasn't about getting even. It was about doing what's right. I'd moved from a grieving father to a committed philanthropist. We shook hands outside his law office. I noticed 3 missed calls from Kyle on my phone, his first sign of realizing how serious things were. I erased the voicemails without a second thought and made my way to my car. A new chapter was about to begin. The Davenport Country Club's grand lobby greeted me with its fine luxury, mahogany wood, sparkling crystal chandeliers, and classic portraits of its founders giving off a vibe of wealth and tradition. For 15 years, I'd walked these halls as treasurer during our monthly board meetings. 12 board members gathered around a pristine conference table, engaging in small talk before diving into official business. The smell of leather and freshly brewed coffee mixed with quiet chats about recent happenings. William Hayes, our board president, came over with sincere warmth. "Alan, the service for Margaret was lovely. She would have appreciated it." "Thank you for the flowers," I responded, touched. Patricia Morton, Margaret's sister and a longtime club member, chimed in. "I kept hoping to see Kyle at the service." "Where was he?" That dreaded question finally came. I paused, choosing honesty over glossing it for Margaret's sake. Kyle didn't make it to his mom's funeral. It was like dropping a bomb in the room. Patricia went pale as a sheet. "What do you mean he chose not to?" she insisted. I told her Kyle's excuse about Megan's birthday party being more important. The board members' disgusted expressions said everything. They valued what Kyle clearly didn't. Meanwhile, Nancy, William's wife, was eavesdropping from the hallway. Before long, she was on the phone, and soon the news spread through the Ladies' Bridge Club and then all of Davenport's high society. Back at home, I had no clue about the social storm I'd unleashed. The fallout hit Megan the very next day. She got kicked out of her fancy yoga class mid-session with a frosty, "We prefer members with family values." Kyle's lunch date at the country club got canceled with a polite but firm call. Their usual table at Romano's? Suddenly, unavailable. As the rejections mounted, Megan's confusion turned into deep anger. By Saturday, Kyle got the ultimate humiliation. His golf buddies left early, and the pro shop manager hinted he should find another spot. Alone by his car, it hit him. Everyone knew about the funeral no-show. Megan's shopping trip to Bergdorf's boutique was the final straw. Staff who used to welcome her turned cold. Her credit took odd hits, and the manager subtly advised her to shop elsewhere. Kyle's professional life crumbled just as badly. Job interviews vanished, past contacts went silent, and his Chamber of Commerce lunch turned awkwardly short. News spread faster than he could. Megan's breaking point came when her salon canceled her regular appointment and she overheard whispers about her heartless hubby. Leaving in tears, she couldn't outrun even the local paper's critique of missing the funeral. Church members frowned openly. Old friends avoided them at events. Kyle tried to explain, but no one cared. The whole town believed I wasn't exaggerating. Davenport's tight-knit community had delivered its verdict. Megan hit her limit, confronting Kyle about their ruined reputation and demanding he fix it. When he admitted he didn't know how, she threatened to leave if things didn't change. I heard about their social downfall from every angle, a satisfying dose of karma aligning with Davenport's values: family loyalty, respecting the departed, basic human decency, all things Kyle tossed aside. The community was honoring Margaret by shunning those who disrespected her. One morning, my phone rang. The bank manager sounded worried. "Mr. Foster, Kyle's mortgage is 30 days overdue. You're still guaranteeing it, right?" I paused, realizing the stakes. "Let's meet tomorrow to talk options," I said. Financial trouble would add to their social exile. At 9 a.m., I walked into the grand lobby of First National Bank, passing portraits of founders who embodied the city's core values. In his office, David Harrison nervously explained Kyle and Megan's financial mess, overdue mortgage, loan papers, and their uncertain financial future. "Thanks for coming on short notice, Alan," David started. "Kyle's mortgage is 60 days past due. He owes $1,800. I stayed calm, hands folded. "I understand you need my guaranteed payment," I said, ready for next steps. David's assumption hung heavy like smoke before a fire ignites. "I'm withdrawing my guarantee, effective immediately," I said. The banker went pale. "I don't understand. You've backed this loan for 8 years, he stammered. I handed over documents prepped by Robert Chen's office. "All is in order, with a 30-day notice as required by law," I added. David called the bank's legal team as I watched traffic on the bridge Margaret and I had often walked. The lawyer confirmed the legality of my move. "We'll need to start foreclosure proceedings," David said weakly. "I understand. Please move quickly," I replied. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of town, Kyle found himself at his 10th job interview in only 2 weeks. The interviewer's indifferent tone was something Kyle had grown all too familiar with. His well-practiced claims about wanting new challenges seemed pointless, as they already knew about his past. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Foster. We'll be in touch," said the interviewer, sounding final. As Kyle slumped towards his old Toyota, he couldn't help but think about how his BMW had been taken away just last month. That same afternoon, Megan had her own shock at Nordstrom. Her platinum card was refused for a simple purchase of mascara, desperately needed after her tears ruined the last one. "This has to be a mistake," she told the store clerk. But a call to her credit card company confirmed that her co-signer had taken back his support. The account was frozen until the full amount was paid. Megan felt the embarrassment wash over her as other customers stared. Alan had pulled away all the financial safety nets they had leaned on. When Kyle and Megan returned home, they found out the power had been cut off. the utility company's notice highlighted over $1,200 in overdue bills. Kyle tried to reason with the payment department, but was shut down as soon as they figured out he'd been fired. Their first evening by candlelight forced them to face a tough truth. In the dimly lit living room, Megan, in her designer heels, stomped around and blamed Kyle for their downfall. His weak excuses of blaming Alan were quickly drowned out by her increasing panic. "Sort this out or I'm leaving," she threatened sharply. Desperate, Kyle tried to get credit, but was flatly refused. With no job, his debt-to-income ratio was sky-high, and Megan's maxed-out cards were useless. Bankruptcy suddenly felt like a real possibility. Even selling their high-end stuff at a garage sale barely brought in any money. Wedding presents, once worth hundreds, were sold for only $20. Old friends drove by without stopping. Megan watched as strangers walked away with her jewelry, and Kyle sold his golf clubs to a teenager. When the BMW was repossessed, it became the talk of the neighborhood as Kyle awkwardly cleared out his belongings under the repo man's watchful gaze. Megan yelled at the driver while the neighbors peeked from behind their curtains. As I drove by that evening, I soaked in their chaos with a smug sense of justice. It wasn't about being unkind. Actions, indeed, have consequences. Margaret had always said that, and now Kyle was beginning to realize it. When Kyle called, begging for a meeting because he had something serious to discuss, I agreed to meet him at Morrison Park the following day. It was where I had taught him to ride a bike 3 decades ago, back when he looked at me with admiration rather than deceit. After the call, I looked at a framed photo of young Kyle on his bike, smiling in simpler times, before placing it face down on my desk. 6 months after that bank meeting, their home went up for foreclosure auction on the courthouse steps. From my black sedan across the street, I watched as their former dream home at 1247 Maple Avenue was put up for sale. The county auctioneer mechanically recited the property's legal description, while real estate investors and onlookers gathered. Kyle and Megan stood on the sidelines, Megan's tears reflecting the morning sun. Through binoculars, I witnessed their final chapter bring some closure to me. The scene of embarrassment began to unfold. "We're starting at $280,000 for this 4-bedroom colonial," the auctioneer announced. A confident woman in a navy business suit raised her hand. Kyle frantically tried to figure out who she was while whispering urgently to Megan. The bidding escalated to $315,000, ending with only the mysterious woman and a local contractor left in the running. When my lawyer, Robert Chen, arrived and nodded at the woman, Kyle's growing suspicions culminated in a shocking revelation. "That's Dad's lawyer," he whispered to Megan, his words cutting through the tension of the crowd. Megan was in disbelief. He wouldn't. He couldn't. Kyle, in a desperate bid to approach the unknown bidder, was stopped by courthouse security. The auction carried on smoothly, but Kyle's world was falling apart around him. $317,000, shouted the lady in navy blue. Once, twice, sold. Kyle's legs couldn't keep him up. Megan shouted, "This is our home!" Her voice bounced off the courthouse walls as the auctioneer's gavel sealed a grim reality. I got out of my car and headed toward the courthouse steps. Seeing me, Kyle suddenly grasped my entire 6-month strategy. It involved pulling back the guarantee, coordinating everything just right, and ensuring the bid matched the mortgage down to the last cent, all neatly orchestrated. The mysterious high bidder turned out to be Sarah Mitchell, my loyal secretary, who bid on behalf of the newly created Mitchell Holdings, LLC. Kyle staggered over, barely keeping his footing, his voice a thin whisper. "How could you do this to us?" he whispered. I kept my tone even. "I didn't do anything," I said. "It was the bank." His pleas about Margaret's beloved garden and her attachment to the house met my icy retort. "Margaret can't see what you've become." Megan's final attempt was a frantic surge, her voice full of accusations of elder abuse and mental decline. Robert Chen noted her outburst as security led her away from me. The whole scene revealed their true selves. 2 weeks later, a moving truck looked diminutive next to what they'd lost. Megan flung clothes into suitcases with frantic energy, while Kyle carefully packed Margaret's crystal vase, his last tie to his mom. Their old neighbors watched, but didn't lend a hand. They were on their own now, socially exiled. That night, Megan issued an ultimatum. "I can't live like this anymore." Her confession about contacting an ex marked the end of their marriage. "I married into wealth, not this." Her last cruel comment hit hard. "Your father wasn't wrong about us." Kyle spent his last night alone in the stripped bare house, wandering through memories of better days. In a kitchen drawer, he stumbled on a note from Margaret. "Kyle, remember we love you." For the first time, genuine tears of regret flowed as he grasped what he'd genuinely lost. I took the keys from Sarah Mitchell with quiet satisfaction. I planned to renovate the house and give it to a deserving family, bringing everything full circle. Margaret would have liked that kind of justice. Later, Kyle called from a payphone outside a cheap motel, his cell service cut. The call rang at my house, but seeing his name, I let it go to voicemail. The showdown could wait. 3 months after losing the house, Kyle stood at my front door on a chilly November evening at 7:30 p.m. He hesitated over the doorbell for a minute while I observed from the living room window, pondering whether to open the door. When I finally did, I didn't ask him in. His appearance shocked me. Unshaven, clad in a crumpled shirt and jeans, he seemed to have aged 5 years and half a year. He was noticeably thinner, his confident demeanor vanished. "Dad, I know I've really screwed up," he started, his voice quivering as he recited a practiced apology about realizing his errors. I stayed in the doorway as he described living in a tiny apartment above a laundromat, working minimum wage at a gas station, and how Megan left him for her ex, who owned a restaurant chain. "I've realized what's truly important," he said. When he changed his tone, suggesting I must be lonely in the big house and offering to be the son Mom wanted, I saw right through his attempts to manipulate. While Kyle was scrolling through his phone, I suddenly asked, "Do you remember your mom's birthday?" He guessed it was June 15th, but that wasn't right. Then I tried another question. What flower did she love? Roses? Nope, she adored daisies. That's when I realized Kyle didn't truly know Margaret at all. Kyle was getting exasperated with my questions, and his old cockiness came back. "This is ridiculous. Just tell me what you want me to say," he said. Eventually, he admitted what he really wanted. "Okay, fine. I need help," he confessed. Between the threats of eviction and the empty promises to pay me back once he was stable again, he clearly saw me as nothing more than a bank. He even tried stirring up feelings by mentioning Margaret. "Mom would hate us being like this. She always believed in second chances. I miss her too, Dad. We both loved her." My thoughts drifted to Margaret's gentle nature for a moment. But then it dawned on me. This was exactly what Margaret had worried about. "Want to know what your mom thought?" I asked, pulling out her hidden journal from the nightstand. I began reading her written concerns aloud. "I'm worried Kyle only cares about the money. What if we've raised him without the capacity to really love?" Kyle's stunned silence said it all. "Margaret knew who you were before she died," I calmly explained. "She changed her will. She left nothing to you knowing you'd waste it." Kyle's facade finally broke down. His threats about contesting the will and accusing me of being disconnected revealed his true nature. In one last spiteful comment, he said, "I hope you die in this house alone," which just confirmed the kind of person he'd become. I quietly closed the door as he continued to pound on it. Meanwhile, I went to the kitchen to make tea, as if nothing had happened. When I heard his car finally leave, I sat down in Margaret's favorite chair, holding her journal. It was the first time I felt at peace since she'd passed. Looking at our wedding photo, I quietly said, "It's over, my love." A year later, on a sunny May day, I went to Riverside Cemetery with fresh daisies for Margaret's grave. The birds sang from the oak trees, and spring flowers brightened the walkways. I felt healthier and more at peace. Kneeling by Margaret's polished granite headstone, I arranged the daisies and shared updates about the flourishing Margaret Foster Memorial Foundation. We'd given out 20 scholarships to deserving students and contributed $200,000 to cancer research in her name. Plans were in motion for a community center dedication on Margaret's birthday. "Kyle's working at Sam's gas station on Route 6, I reported bluntly. His divorce had been finalized, and Megan was remarried to a restaurant owner. Kyle lived in loneliness and financial strain. I didn't find any joy in his misfortune, just a sense of justice. After leaving the cemetery, I stopped at Morning Glory Diner. Kyle was behind the counter wearing a stained uniform. Our eyes met, and I saw the shame in his. I casually ordered a coffee, treating him like any other server. "How are you, Dad?" Kyle's voice was filled with a new, honest humility. "I'm doing well, thanks." He then quietly admitted, "I know sorry isn't enough." "No, it isn't." His insight caught me off guard. "I understand what I lost now. It was never about the money, was it? You wanted love, not wealth. Mom knew that too." For the first time, his tears seemed genuine. "I did what I had to," I told him. "Margaret would have approved. I regret nothing." "I know," Kyle replied. "I earned what I got." "Yes, you did." When Kyle asked if there was a way back, I was honest. "I'm not sure. Maybe. But you'd need to prove you've changed. Not with words, but with actions." I talked about my new life, volunteering at the community center, forming new friendships with other volunteers, Sunday dinners with the Johnsons, whose daughter received a scholarship. I had begun dating Grace, a kind widow from church. My life felt meaningful and connected. Meeting Sarah Patterson, our first scholarship recipient, brought true fulfillment. Her letter of thanks for going to nursing school and her touching tribute to Margaret on the foundation's website kept Margaret's spirit alive. Driving past Kyle's old place on my way home, I saw how the Ramirez family had transformed it into a lively, loving sanctuary. Mr. Ramirez waved at me from the garden that Margaret once tended with care. Kids now played in the space where Kyle used to race around. The whole house beautifully echoed everything Margaret treasured. That evening, while I cooked in the kitchen Margaret and I used to share, I set the table for one, but didn't feel sad. Then a call from Grace came in, asking about our weekend plans. For the first time since losing Margaret, I found myself truly smiling. As the evening light faded, I stood outside, trimming Margaret's favorite rose bushes, feeling that peace you get when you fought hard for something right and succeeded. I knew I was keeping my wife's memory alive, and that gave me deep satisfaction. Early to bed that night, I finally had a restful sleep, dreaming of Margaret. In my dream, she was beaming, saying, "You did the right thing, Alan. I'm proud of you." Justice had been served. Love sometimes means making tough choices, but they were the right ones. Rest easy, my love.